Hi, my name is Drew Pomeroy, and welcome to this beginner-friendly series on learning RStudio and Shiny Apps.io for athlete monitoring. In this series, we'll be exploring how to create a dynamic and user-friendly web application to monitor athletic performance, specifically focusing on baseball players. So let's go ahead and set up the rest of our longitudinal graphs. We'll do the bilateral CMJ, we'll do the upper body test, and then we'll do the rotational test. So we've got 3 more to add in here. We'll do a little bit of organizing too. So the first one, so each of these is gonna have 3 pieces. So we need to update the UI and we need to update the server in 2 areas. So first, let's go through the UI. We're gonna create a drop down for each test and then create a graph for each test, or a graph output, I guess. So you can see here, I have the longitudinal section drop down for the 10.5 metric, and then I have the longitudinal bar graph. So we need to create these for every single one, and we want to keep them in this order, because in this order, this is going to have the drop down and then the graph output, and then another drop down and then another graph output. If we put all the drop downs together, it would show us all of our drop downs, and then it would show us all of our graphs. So we're just going to eliminate that process right now. So I'm actually going to kind of rename this just so I have clearer sections. I'm finding it as the code gets bigger, it gets a little more difficult to find where you're trying to go. So I'm just going to do this longitudinal section piece here, and I'm actually just going to change this to make it simple and easy to read. 10.5 drop down. This one is going to be 10.5 graph, just so we make this super easy. I'm also just going to do this and kind of chunk them together like that. So our next one, we'll put a comma here. Is that actually where we put the comma? Fluid row. Let's check. Yeah. Column width, that is not where we put it. So come back here, and it's going to be here. Now I can do this. Mine, for whatever reason, is not playing nice when it wants to go over. But anyway, I am just going to update a few things within the 10.5 as well as we add these other pieces in. So you see how this says selected metric? We're actually gonna have to update quite a bit here. So I'm gonna call this the selected 10 metric. So now I'm gonna go update and select 10 metric. So let's look for selected metric and change that to selected 10. Let's go look for it again. Select 10. Selected 10. I see selected 10. Selected 10. Let's go back to Control F, and no more occurrences. So we should be good to go there. Let's just make sure that everything checks out for us. And it does. It still pulls through. Things are updating and changing. We're good to go. So I just wanted to do that naming because we're going to have 3 others, and I can't call them all metric values. Right? We're going to update that at some point here. But I can't call them all the same thing. So they all got to have different names as we're going through. So let's get moving on with finishing our longitudinal section for the UI. All right, so let's dive into it. I'm actually going to move that parenthesis up there, get rid of that, and we will put one there just so that way, and let me get rid of these spaces. I just like keeping that, how that looks. So let's go ahead and copy these 2 here all the way to that comma and paste. Now see, mine kind of offsets a little bit. If I hit Command Z, it brings it all back this way. I'm not totally sure why that's happening, but I've tested this and this whole code is going to work. So we'll just hit Command Z after you paste to get it to align if you're seeing the same thing as me. If you're not, great. All right, so this is not going to be our 10.5. This is going to be our CMJ dropdown. So I'm just going to take this CMJ, update the graph, CMJ, fluid row, selected 10 metric. We are going to go selected CMJ metric and selected the CMJ metric, and then longitudinal bar graph. I'm going to keep this one for the 10.5 as longitudinal bar graph because I don't want to put numbers in here, so we'll just leave it as is, but all these will be named as if they are the CMJ themselves. So I am going to call this one CMJ bar graph. Easy. CMJ bar graph. Nice. So we're just going to continue to build that out. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste this stuff in here. But if you want to do that for each and every one, you can kind of pause on this next screen and write them all out. All right, so I pasted the rest of these in. See, we've got the 10.5 going on here. We have our CMJ dropdown and graph here. Here's the upper body test and drop down. Then you have your rotational test and drop down. I'll pause there for a second if you want to pause the screen and copy these things down. But that is going to conclude what we're doing for the UI, right? And again, that puts it so that we have the drop down selector and then the graph underneath. And we're just placing that within the interface itself. So now we're going to head down to the server and we're going to create a metric column for each test. So let's go longitudinal section. There we go. So we want to come here and we see we have this observe metric columns. We're going to do some updating in here. So let me go ahead, find exactly what I did here. We can keep this one, metric columns. I won't change that, I just don't feel like changing that one. What I'm also gonna do, just for a little consistency, I'm gonna move these down just so we can, really see how many metrics we have in each one. I just think that looks a little bit nicer. But anyway, we're just going to copy this and keep writing it out for each one. So I'll give us a little space and we'll get going. So copy, and let's give one space. So for this one, what we want to do, I'm going to name this one. So right, we can't have the same name here that whatever we're calling this list of columns. So our 10.5 is going to read off metric columns, and then our let's see here, bilateral CMJ. Let me just put that in here, bilateral CMJ. This one I am just going to call bilateral columns. And then we need to update the metrics in here. So a good call out here is when we pull these, you can't just go to here and start copying these because these have lowercase characters in them. So we're gonna come back here. I actually want to get all the column names from new assessment that we have written in. And I will run that. And now down here, you can see that I've got everything we're gonna need, and just go up to the very top here and we're just gonna find where our bilateral CMJ starts. So we've only got a couple here. So we're gonna have bilateral CMJ jump height and takeoff velocity. I'm gonna go ahead and copy these, but see how these are all capitalized? So that will make it pretty easy for us to paste it in here. And oh, it's actually 3 of them. Sorry, there's 2 lines going across here. Maybe that's because of this. Who knows? All right, let's just hit enter there. And let's go ahead, we'll get rid of these numbers. It's nice too, because this already puts them in quotations. So all we need to do is go add a comma in between all of them, and we'll take out this number. So it just makes it really nice and convenient. All right, so we don't want the selected 10 metric in here, right? We want our selected CMJ metric. I think I capitalized it actually. So selected CMJ metric. We don't want to pull metric columns. We want to pull bilateral columns. So let's go ahead and copy this. Put this in here. Boom, boom. Again, this one means we default to the first metric in the list. But that's good to go now, right? So we're just going to do that for each and every one. I'll copy over these other ones in here. Pause for a sec if you want to copy them. All right, so these are pasted in there now. I gave myself, you know, another kind of section block here. So we're updating the drop-down choices. So the 10.5. Here we've got the bilateral CMJ, upper body power, rotational power, and these are all of the metric names that you're going to want, or column header names. So if you want to pause this screen and copy those down, that's what you'll need, or copy them from down here in your space down there. But that's really it for that section. We've now created the list that's going to go in our drop-down selection. So pretty nice and easy. All right, so now we need to scroll all the way to the bottom. This is the last piece that we need to do, and then we're just going to run this thing. So what we've got here is our previous longitudinal bar graph. So this actually pulls in the data. We now need to make this for every single one of the pieces that we made it previously, or those sections, I guess. So what we're gonna do is create another space. You know, maybe we actually want to section this out a little bit better. So I'm gonna, here we go. So longitudinal bar graph, this is the 10.5 data. So we've got that going, and let's down here, let's go ahead and say we're gonna do our bilateral CMJ data, and I'm just gonna copy this. We're gonna copy this, we're gonna put it here. So output, not longitudinal bar graph. Our output here is actually gonna be the CMJ bar graph. Remember, we did that up earlier. If you wanna see where that is, here's CMJ bar graph. All right, we did this all the way up under our longitudinal section in the UI. So we need to make sure that it goes into this area. So now we're back down here. CMJ bar graph, render plot's great. Input selected 10 metric, no, because that's our selected 10.5 metric. We want our selected CMJ metric. And remember, we had that capitalized just to be sure. If you want to type selected CMJ, yes, we did capitalize it. So we should be good to go, and we put that in here. Nice. So bilateral CMJ, we're back down in this code, and now we need to extract the values for the selected metric. So metric values, that is not what I'm going to call this. I'll just call this CMJ metric values. Now input selected 10 metric, no, we want selected CMJ metric. We want those to match. Next, for our plots, GG plot player data, boom, boom, boom. Metric values, wrong. We need this to be CMJ metric values. Field, GM text, labels. Here's metric values again. We just want to put CMJ right in front of that because everything is reading back to these metrics that we're pulling in here. All right, color black. Event, selected 10 metric, nope. It's gonna be that CMJ in the middle there. That's good to go, and that's all you need to do for each one. Copy what you did previously, make sure you've got your final little squiggly line down here, and you're always just kind of pressing enter to get rid of that, or keep it with you as you go down, because that closes off your server code. But yeah, just copy this for every single one of those and update them accordingly. Use Command F to go find things if you need to. If you can't remember what your selected metric was, or whatever it is, you can do that. So I'm going to paste the rest of these in, and then we'll go ahead and run this thing. All right, so I've got our section here. Of course, we've got the 10.5 data. We have the bilateral CMJ data. And now I'll kind of pause down here for a bit. And this is it. This is the final. So what I've done here, upper body test data, we called this one the upper bar graph, and then it's selected upper metric. So just make sure you're updating these appropriately with how you named everything else. So just make sure the output matches and make sure your selected matches. Change this to upper metric values. So make sure that that also populates right here and right here. And then selected upper metric from earlier. Just make sure that that populates in all the right places that you can see. And it's nice too because it highlights everything, you know, and it just tells you where you need to go update stuff. Same thing for rotational test, output rota bar graph. All right, that's right there. And then our input is selected rota metric. So make sure all of those are updated from the previous one you copied over, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then rota metric values, just make sure you name it this or whatever you're naming it. Just make sure that you have that consistent all the way across. And this should be honestly good to go. And let's go ahead and run this thing and see what it looks like. So we'll go all the way back up to UI. Boom. Run the server. Seemingly no issues so far. We'll run this app and let's go ahead and take a look at what we got. We've got every single one in there. We are looking good. Makes it really nice and easy to see them. Maybe we'll break these up and make this you know, a little bit more aesthetic or whatever, but these are looking good right here. Each one of these works with the drop down. We see them all update. Let's test our CMJ. Beautiful. Let's test the downward slams. Nice. And our hitter style shot put. Great. Great. These, when we get up, so when I wrote the you know, randomize for all of the data, I only did it within a certain number frame on either side. So these ones where we get up into the 4,000 and 5,000 numbers, it starts to make it look like we're not actually changing anything. So, you know, maybe at some point we can do something about that in the graph. But yeah, we've got it all updating. So we got our event IDs on the bottom, and you know, if you just wanted something basic, you could give this to someone. The only thing we're missing is the movement screen. So we're gonna go ahead, and that's the next piece that we're gonna build out. So, and we'll probably get rid of this assessment scores area here. I'll keep the title, but these I'm gonna get rid of because we already have those there. Just make it look a little bit cleaner and in those sections. But yeah, we are well on our way. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to stay updated on the next video, and I'll see you in the next one.